Well, all right, folks. Welcome. It's John Henry Soto here. Welcome to Music Makers with Break Time. And this is going to be our last episode of Break Time. We will be doing other things. We'll be doing bigger and better things. But as we already have our music to play us in, um, we're going to be talking about music from the 80s. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome break time. And as I said, we're going to be talking today about music from the 80s. Yes, so obviously,
Johnny boy! There
I
you
know.
go. Where you went?
To the audition,
Excuse
everybody.
me, I meant
Everybody.
Dr. Sean. Excuse me.
There he is.
Dr.
There he is.
Shawnee in the house.
Where did he go?
So,
Good evening.
Good evening, Sean, Joey, Tommy. So tonight is our last one of this Music Makers thing. We're probably going to do something similar, but we'll be a little bit different. We're going to be playing some music. I want to be doing some actual music playing in these things. So we're going to figure out a few things, which I have already in my trusty book here, a bunch of ideas that hopefully will pan out. Maybe segments. We'll figure it out. But we do want to thank before anything. We want to thank anybody that's out there, anybody who's watched these episodes. We've done approximately like 20, I would say. You know, I think about 20, maybe a little bit more episodes of Music Makers, and it's been a lot of fun. I've gotten to know these guys a lot better. I feel like when we started, we almost didn't really know each other that well. We kind of just jammed a couple of times and talked a little bit here and there and planned. And now we kind of all become sort of like really close friends. And this whole thing, this whole experience, this and the other thing I do has been really a blessing for me to be able to get to know people, artists especially, that have the same like-minded views on creating wonderful music and inspiring the world. And, you know, I'm the corny guy. I will get corny. I really don't give a crap. I'm old and I've done a lot of shit. I don't have to cater to anybody's expectations of how I should sound like. I sound like me. And I'm really ecstatic that I've met these guys and that we're going to be doing some other stuff moving forward. So with that said, I want to thank you guys for being part of this. I want to say it before we end off, but, you know, I appreciate you guys taking the time to being on here and also providing like some really great expertise and viewpoints and educating our audience as well. So thanks, guys.
Love you, John.
Anytime.
Love you, John.
Love you too, man. So I guess, you know, music from the 80s. I mean, good Lord. You know, I could only think of one guy that came out.
Believe it or not.
And I'm just gonna tell the story first, and I won't even mention who he is. But it was the 25th anniversary of Motown. It was my first experience with with what happened afterwards. And I was just watching TV because you know, and there was music stuff playing. So I'm like, okay, it was the Motown. I love Motown, and I was like, well, I'm gonna watch this. And here comes this group of five, the very famous group of five from the 70s. And they did a bunch of their hit songs, and it was like really great, and I loved it, and it was like good. And then the lead singer or the lead guy of that group kind of like comes off a little bit, and he very quietly says, you know, but those were the old songs, you know. And the audience kind of starts going crazy, and suddenly the world changed. And when I tell you, folks, and you guys were not born, but when I tell you that the next day the world was different, I am not kidding you. The world was completely different the next day after this young man, 20 whatever years old he was, took the stage and did the things that we never really saw anybody do. No, nobody moved that way. Nobody sing that way. Nobody, his presence, nobody ever had that in our experience. I mean, you can go back and say when Elvis Presley took the stage and, you know, those kind of things. But for one guy to do what he did, the next day, the world was completely different. And he was the biggest most famous person on the planet, and he remained that for his entire life. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Sean. I think probably everybody already knows who I might be talking about. Everybody's like, gee, I wonder who. Michael Bolton. But
yes.
So I'm just going to turn it over to Sean, and he's going to introduce to us. You heard a little music in the beginning, so that kind of gave more.
Yeah.
But before that, I want to say just hello to this Facebook user. The name doesn't come up there. I apologize. Yeah, and we definitely like that. And here's Mary Lawson.
Mary.
Hey guys, we meet again.
Hey, Mary.
How are you, Mary? Thank you so much.
Mary.
Yeah. So all right. So Sean, take it away.
All right. So that was a great introduction, John, as always. So I will take over from here, and I will start with this phrase: "Video killed the radio star." It's not only a song by the Buggles, but it defines the 80s as the poignant first song with a music video that was played on music television, also known as MTV.
Yeah.
And that debuted on August 1st of 1981. So that was 39 years ago. That was it marked a shift from musical arrangement and lyrical prose that focused to more of a visual presentation, like the fashion sensibilities of artists, as well as adding a theatrical flair to their products. And this brought forward an unheard of level of superstardom, only rivaled and bested by that of the Beatles and Elvis Presley. So I'm going to name some of these superstars, and we're going to get to the person that you mentioned, John. So we have Prince, Whitney Houston, Madonna, and Michael Jackson.
Oh,
Michael Jackson.
Oh, that's who.
that's
Thought
the
you were
guy.
talking about Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And Michael
From the
Jackson.
Bulls.
Michael Jackson ruled the 80s. He absolutely dominated the 80s. And you're right, John. He was just a part of our culture. It was kind of like the Elvis and Beatles effect, that he just was always present in the culture since that moment where he said, when he said,
Yeah, he said, but those were the old songs.
the old songs. Since that moment that he moonwalked.
But I tell you, and I hate to keep going on this, but like when he had the hat, and then suddenly it was like, I didn't know what he was doing, because again, it was first time, and it was like, it was the first time I even heard Billie Jean.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't even really pay attention to like that song came out. I didn't even know if it was out, or maybe it was out and I just didn't get it, or it was just out. But that thing hit and it was like, and it was like the whole audience got electrified. If you look at that footage, the whole audience suddenly jumps up to their feet, like in some almost like uncontrollable thing. It was like literally like a, what you would say like a religious experience of some type, where people just jumped up to their feet, and even people who normally would not, all these people are just kind of like, oh, yeah. What's happening? Yeah. Something amazing is happening right now.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing when something could happen just from a simple thing like a drum beat, or going back to the 70s when Elton John played the first chord of Benny and the Jets, and now everybody knows that's what he's going to do.
Amazing. Anyway, I just wanted to reiterate.
Unheard of. So Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones, they dominated the 80s with songs like Billie Jean, Beat It, Want to Be Starting Something, Pretty Young Thing, Human Nature, Smooth Criminal, and Thriller. And collaborations like Say, 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 Somebody's Watching Me. And he appeared in the 1985 We Are the World video. And all of these songs, but Smooth Criminal and the collaboration.
He wrote that song with Lionel Richie too.
Mm-hmm.
The Other World. Yeah.
All of these songs, but Smooth Criminal and the collaborations were off of the Thriller album. So let's talk about Thriller for a bit. Thriller was released on November 30th of 1982 and is now recognized as having the second most album sales of all time at 33 times platinum. So that's over 33 million units sold. In 1984, Thriller he basically swept the Grammys.
Not nominated. He won.
He won all of them. Yes, he won all of them. Swept it. And he was only 25 years old. He was taking this victory lap at the Grammys with just a clean sweep. And these Thriller songs, they dominated MTV, and they established its place in the music industry. But that was only one of the many places that Thriller's tracks really saturated. Others were the top 40 radio stations already out there, CDs, an 80s invention, and compact cassettes. So Thriller was like a cultural milestone. It's like a cultural landmark that really defines what the 80s sound really was. It was about dance music and just having a good time. And I'll talk about the production in a bit, but listen to Thriller and you'll know what 80s production sounds like. Now, on the strength of Thriller.
Absolutely.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Mary.
It was
on the strength, it was released off of Epic Records, so it was already epic.
Wow.
On the strength of Thriller, Michael Jackson moved forward to collaborate with Paul McCartney and Rockwell to release songs Say, 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 The Girl Is Mine, and Somebody's Watching Me. Keeping himself on the airways, as well as keeping Paul McCartney up there in the cultural zeitgeist. And We Are the World, he wrote and appeared on that music video.
Yep, he wrote it.
Writing it with Lionel Richie. After 5 years.
Hanson is talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, just tuned in. Yeah, I'm kidding. This guy wrote the song. Yeah, We Are the World. Yeah, he wrote it with Lionel Richie.
Mm-hmm. After 5 years, it took 5 years, but after 5 years in 1987, on August 31st, the album Bad was released, which was the final collaboration between Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. And the tracks on there that are highlights, most of them are really highlights because the focus of the album kind of moved back to having a bunch of powerful singles, an album of singles instead of being a concept album. But still, the Bad had certain themes that Michael Jackson wrote about, and that was really his most creatively free album, where he was free to create and take risks and really dictate the direction of where his sound was. Some of these tracks were Bad, The Way You Make Me Feel, Man in the Mirror, Dirty Diana, and Smooth Criminal.
Oh my Lord.
And Bad went 10 times platinum, so that was over 10 million copies sold. And that really cemented Michael Jackson's songwriting ability because he composed 9 of the 11 total tracks on that album. So shout out to Michael Jackson, huge cultural phenomenon that you'll never see somebody like Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, there are, and we've talked about this in this show, where there are certain people that, we're just never going to see that. We're never going to see an Elvis again. We're never going to see the Beatles do what they did again. We're never going to see Jimi Hendrix do what he did again. Somebody do that again. Just that tremendous impact that just completely, where everyone likes him. You know what I mean? Like, it's a rare thing, where because you have artists now that people will say, oh, I love this artist. And you'll find a lot of people that be like, I don't really like them. You know what I mean? It's like, but when I was growing up, nobody would dare say they don't like. Everybody loved Michael Jackson. It was just like, I don't think I ever heard anybody say I just don't like Michael Jackson. It was not a possible thing because there was nothing really not like. You know what I mean? The music was good. The dancing was fantastic. It was very everything was done sort of like everything was done huge. It was done like it was very huge. It was big. It was epic. And everything had to be that way. That's why Thriller, the song, he had to have his own like little mini movie, which was another one of the first ever. And I remember when that came out, I mean, we were gathering on. People were running home. Yeah, we're all running home to see this thing that it's been announced like on MTV, and everybody's talking about it. So we're all running home to ready to see it tonight at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Michael Jackson, and then this thing hits, and when I first saw it, I was kind of like just like shocked, because it was, I had no idea what the hell to expect, and it was just shocking to see people crawling out of the ground. And but it was a movie, it was like watching a movie. And then one of the things that also I enjoyed was that Michael was a pretty good actor. Michael was a really good actor. He was very convincing, and even if you watch The Wiz, he was in The Wiz with Diana Ross and some other people and stuff. He did a great job there too. He was very convincing actor. And there was a part of it when I saw Landis when he was directing him, and he turns to Michael and he goes, "Michael," he goes, "No, you're not upset. You think it's funny. You think it's funny. Turn around to him and you think it's funny." So they showed him redoing it again, and Michael turns around and he nails it. He completely like nails the actual like like the kind of like the fake laugh, the acting laugh, but he completely took the direction so well, and he just completely nailed it. And I was like, wow, this guy is really a good, and that was behind the scenes stuff and all that. He was also like a kid at heart, you know what I mean? Like there's footage of him like sliding back and forth on the floor of the studio where they were practicing the dances for Thriller. And while they were like talking about the thing, Michael was just running around in the back, sliding on his socks on the nice slippery wooden floor. So there's footage of him going, he's just laughing with other people. But he just had a very, his childhood was sort of like rough. His father was a little bit of a I don't want to say tyrant, because I have friends that were close friends with him that live in Bayonne actually, and with Joe Jackson, and I know that I don't want to say anything bad about Joe Jackson. I don't know Joe Jackson. I didn't know what he did or how he behaved, but per some of the stories that you would hear, and even per some of the stuff that even the brothers would say, and even the sisters, he was rough. And some might say that was the thing that propelled them to either excel at music or be so frightened that they just knew they had to get really, really good, but aside from that, what he accomplished up to 1987, just those from 81 or whatever, 80, what was it, 81 to
so it was 82 was when he released Thriller, and 87 was when he released Bad.
Yeah. So I mean,
to remain relevant between those two albums was
but you think about it, what was it, 5 years? I mean, in 5 years to revolutionize the world and to change things from what they were to pretty much what they are still today. I mean, how many singers do we have to see out there going, and do the dances and all that stuff? I mean, if you look at Usher, if you look at Chris Brown, if you look at all these guys,
there's a direct link in the way that they performed to Michael Jackson.
Absolutely, they've all been inspired by Michael, and it's still happening today. And and anyway, so he was fantastic, and I think we should probably move on. But that's he's like one of those guys you could do a whole episode on, really, when you think about it. Mm-hmm. You can talk about so many other things. All right, Sean, you're still up. Sorry.
So we just talked about a superstar, so we're gonna go to the other extreme here. We're gonna go to the one-hit wonders, because it was really the 80s. There were a lot of one-hit wonders pumped out from the music industry, because it just became so easy to exploit and to record and exploit the recordings of one good recording from one person at a time, and make so much money off of that one person and not have to develop them or do anything with them again.
The music video was such a huge thing too. You attach it to a music video. I could think of one band. MTV. Yeah, MTV. If I could think of one band that had a one-hit wonder that were huge because of their music video and the song. But you go ahead. Yeah. You might be talking about them.
And I'm going to highlight them. I know exactly who you were talking about.
Oh, good.
So I'm gonna go to the one-hit wonders here. So we have some favorites. I'm gonna go through a lot of Joey's favorites on here, but we're gonna start with the outfield's Your Love, Taco, their cover of Putting on the Ritz, the Irving Berlin song, Philip Bailey with Phil Collins, Easy Lover.
Now,
Shannon.
Philip Bailey was with Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But solo, he just had that one hit, and then he never.
I just wanted to make sure that people understood that he was still a legendary band.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had that one hit band. I love that song too. That's a great song.
Yeah, it's power rock at its best.
I love it.
Shannon with Let the Music Play.
Oh my God, you went there, yo! That Shannon was like, I saw Shannon perform like a bunch of times in the Bronx growing up. She would play like these little clubs not in the Bronx, in Manhattan, but there was a place in the Bronx called Skate Key. It was a roller rink, but on Friday nights and Saturday night they would turn it into like they had a little fake stage and whatever, and there were performances. I saw Bobby Brown there perform by himself. I saw Run DMC. These new guys with like nobody knew who they were. They came up there and they were like, "It's like that, and that's the way it is." Then they sang. Then who else was there? And Shannon. Shannon performed there all the time. Wow, I didn't think you mentioned Shannon, but
yeah, the Buggles with Video Killed the Radio Star.
Oh yeah.
Matthew Wilder, Break My Stride. Lips Inc. Funky
That's
Town.
a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Weather Girls, It's Raining Men.
Wait, that was the 80s?
Mm-hmm.
Why did I think that was the 70s? Wow.
Yep.
Wasn't that song written by Paul Schaefer from the David Letterman?
Was it?
I believe it. I believe it was. You can keep going. I'll just research it.
Yeah, all right. I'll keep going. So we've got Bobby McFerrin's Don't Worry.
Oh my God.
Happy.
Oh boy.
The Cutting Crews, I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight.
Just died in your arms.
Yeah, I just want to say something about Bobby McFerrin. A great singer.
Mm-hmm.
Great singer.
Oh yeah.
Twisted
Paul
Sister.
Schaefer.
With We're Not Gonna Take It. Rockwell in their collaboration with Michael Jackson with Somebody's Watching Me. Devo with Whip It. Soft Cell, Tainted Love. Tommy Two-Tone with 8675309. Dexy's Midnight Runners with Come On Eileen. And then the artist that John was referring to, Aha with Take On Me.
Man, when
How
that
could we
video
forget
came out,
that?
you know how many times I saw that video? I mean, it was played on MTV like, I mean, it must have been played 10 times a day easily. I mean, I can't even imagine. I would turn it on sometimes, watch it, walk away, and come back, and it's playing again. It was a constant thing. It was like unbelievable. So yeah, Paul Schaefer did write "It's Raining Men."
So
Weird because he's straight. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just saw it. So
hey, we're not taking any stance here on music makers, anybody. But anyway, shout out to the one-hit wonders. Shout out to the one-hit wonders, the innumerable ones, because we obviously missed a lot of them. But these were really the highlights of the one-hit wonders in the 80s. And now
the video was really creative too, by the way. I mean, it was one of those. It was when they realized that you can actually you don't have to just stand in front there holding your instrument and sing. What's his name? The leads the Eagles, Don Henley. His videos were just like the worst. He's basically just standing. This is the end of the innocence, or whatever songs he was singing at the time, and then that song came out, Aha, and I don't know if it was before or afterwards, but people just started realizing, hey, you know what? We could be creative on this. We don't have to just be standing around holding instruments, And didn't they learn anything from Michael Jackson's, for Christ's sakes? Because some of those music videos, if you go back and watch 80s music videos, they are really, really rough.
Yeah.
Really, really rough, I love it.
Yeah. I'm going to mention one more artist just because I want to do it before anybody else does. And I'm going to say this. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna
Ah.
let you down. Never gonna run around and hurt you. You've been rickrolled, everybody. You got rickrolled. Rick Astley. Never gonna give you
Joey,
up.
Will's going.
Did
Really?
you see? Did you by any chance see Rick Astley playing that with the Foo Fighters? Have you seen that?
Oh yeah. Yo, that was like a meme concert.
Dude, he comes out on stage, the audience goes crazy because people love Rick Astley, and he's actually very, very
Yeah.
popular around the world. He still performs, but he
Oh, yeah,
comes
yeah.
out, the
Yeah,
place
he's great.
goes insane, and he's with the Foo Fighters, and they start. He's like, never gonna give you up. It's like
It's like
this
heavy.
rock- but you know what? They actually, I mean, they're the Foo Fighters, and I think that David is awesome, but they pulled it off. It sounded great, and the audience was like.
I mean,
And
hey,
Rick actually was like, you've
Yeah,
never.
the Foo Fighters, man. Of course,
And the
they're
Foo Fighters, yeah, they're freaking disgusting,
rock it every time.
So I said, John has somebody. Oh yeah, this time I'm making it, isn't it? This time I'm making. I'm not sure. I don't remember that one.
We should get the fact checking committee on that one. Whoever wants to be the fact checking committee, not it. So we're gonna move on to production. If you listen to any of these songs, you're gonna notice a very characteristic thing to them with the '80s sound, which many people really. I've heard a lot of people that believe that the '80s sound really hasn't aged well. It seems more like candy compared to the '50s and the '60s, but I like the '80s sound. I know that Joey likes the '80s sound, and I stand in solidarity with my hungry drummer. So the '80s sound really was the result of analog recording becoming digital. So production from a computer really made highly sterile songs, really unrealistically perfect sounding songs, like I said, like Candy. However, this does not diminish the creative accomplishments and talents of those artists who survived the 80s with the rapid changes going on in production between moving to digital synthesizers, heavy compression, heavily compressed and reverberating drums, which were all trademark technologies of the 1980s. So,
Hey, Brandon.
shout out to 80s production. A lot of change going on in the 80s. It was really exponential when
Love a girl.
when digital recording and production became a thing. So I'm done.
So I'm gonna just jump off on that a second, or is that
Yes.
the right term? Jump off on it. Anyway, I'm gonna just continue that conversation with the '80s. In the when I was growing up, music from the '80s was like, we would call it dance music, right? And there were guys like Shannon was one of them. She kind of came in with like Let the Music Play, and she had a couple of other ones that were kind of well known. There was Lisa and Cult Jam. They were very, very popular. There was Noel. There was Stevie B. There was all these even Mark Anthony, who later on became a salsa singer and a pop, a really, really famous guy as well. Started out singing that style of music, and it kind of originated in the Bronx, and it was because synthesizers you can do, they kind of came out, in the early 80s, right? We had little Casios and stuff, and as they progressed, you can really create these rhythms and these very simple beats. But if you put a nice melody over it and you put a decent singer, over it, you get these songs like the Cover Girls, which is I don't know, she said Love Girl, but there's a band called the Cover Girls. There was another band called Expose. It was like 3 girl singers. My friend Ray Serrano had a hit song called Clave Rocks, which was a gold record that he got on there, and and he was known as a amaretto, they called him, and he was on the cut. He was big, and matter of fact, he worked on Africa Bambaata's albums and stuff like Planet Rock and things like. Remember Planet Rock? I mean, that was like this whole genre of music was sort of like almost a separate from what was happening with like Michael Jackson's. Like we would go to a club or where I mean, back in those days I was I was breakdancing basically, but I would go to these places and I would see Michael Jackson would play Michael Jackson and then they would play these music. So these dance songs, and Paula Abdul, very good, Mary. Yeah, Paula Abdul was huge, with this kind of with that type of straight up now. Tell me, do you want to be in love with you? I can't really just sing normally. I have to kind of make faces, but so that whole genre of music, sort of it kind of sort of just went away because as people got more savvy technically, then they realized they can do more, and you needed more. You needed more money. You needed more production. You couldn't get away with the simple ding 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 ding. You couldn't get away with that anymore. And then it is people like I look at Rush, the band Rush in the 80s, who went through this whole keyboard synthesizer phase. Like if you listen to Hemispheres, the whole album is sort of like this.
It was a huge metamorphosis.
Yes, very airy album. I love it. I love it. I mean, anything they do, I love. But it was very different. It didn't sound like the Rush from Fly By Night and those and the Spirit of Radio. All that stuff. Moving pictures. So it didn't really sound like that. It was, but there was a freshness to it. You know what I mean? It was something completely fresh. And I think that's why it took off so much and why everybody just completely overdid it. It was one, inexpensive, and it was fairly easy to do. If you can hit a couple of chords, you have this huge sound coming out of this thing. Yeah. It's like just a few chords. So everyone just was really being as creative as they possibly could with that technology. And then, it kind of faded away a little bit. And rock music kind of was very rough. It was really difficult for a rock band, a real authentic rock band, to really make any way unless you were like Van Halen, which we will probably talk about a little bit. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that style of music because my brother and I, and me also, because I was in that world, so I would see, Africa Bambaataa at places, and there were all these big dance shows that I did and stuff, and all that stuff was just, it was that part of that culture in the Bronx, and that was the kind of music that we were listening to. Of course, in my house, I was listening to B.B. King, which was nobody even knew who he was. But when I went out, that's what we were listening to. So anyway, I want to stop on there, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Joey.
Mr. Joester.
All right. Thank you, guys. The 80s were like a huge change in the culture of the United States, especially, and just like, and that reflected in the music as well as the entertainment, not just the music, but the films, the fashion, everything really, how everyone like projected themselves. It was always like, it had to be like big, showmanship. Everything was loud.
I remember America was also very prosperous during.
And America was prosperous. It reflected in the economy. The economy was booming at that time, especially after, I think in the 70s, they went through a bit of like a recession.
Huge.
The misery index with Jimmy Carter.
Yeah. And then the Vietnam thing, the Vietnam War and all that. But they bounced back really well, especially with Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
Reagan. And and then stuff like, people's, everyone's like childhood, everyone who grew up with like MTV and stuff like that. MTV really, gave a good childhood to a lot of the people, and they really, promoted the music well. Especially in like the music production, like the sounds of, like Sean was saying, like with the sounds of the instruments, everything was bigger. They used a lot more reverb.
Oh man.
Even the drum sounds, like the drum sounds, if like, I'm assuming like if you think of an 80s song, you'd always hear that explosive like snare drum in your head, like it's like that's in like every
snappy and loud.
It was more of a crash cymbal than a
But that was characteristic of the 80s. some of my favorite bands from the 80s. Like I said, I'm like a huge 80s head, and I love the movies. I love everything. Huey Lewis and the News. I mean, I talked about them like all the time. I mean, you guys probably know already.
No, I love them.
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah, they actually started out like in the late 70s, and they did like they did it like the real way, where they they played in clubs, and they played in like the 2 a.m. club, and then they just branched out. Huey met like some guys in college, like he met Bill Gibson, he met everyone, and also a lot of the message from them. Sorry, it's in my mouth, but a lot of the message from their music is about the blue collar workers. Not a lot of musicians really like focused on that, and that's something that I really respected about them. Is that they focused more on like the hardworking people of America, like the construction
everyday
workers.
man.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in one of their songs, "Working for a Living." That was very characteristic of the '80s too. Everyone was working, everyone was making money. It was successful.
I mean, if you look at and sorry to cut you off, but if you look at some of the movies like Working 9 to 5, that was like a big hit. Working 9 to 5, that was a huge thing. Working for a Living, right?
Secret of My Success too. That was another good one.
Yeah, Secret of My Success. Yeah. All these, it was
Hit
that
to
was
be square.
Prosperous. Yeah, that was how prosperous it was. And one thing I just want to say about Huey Lewis was that those guys really, were very successful in a time when they really almost shouldn't have been. I mean, then you think about how things were up against them. They had Michael Jackson, and they had all the synthesizer Devo music and stuff that they had to kind of like get in there, and they were like ripping it up. Because I mean, they had good songs, and I think the sincerity of those guys just came through in the music, and people actually just saw Huey Lewis, and you just feel nice. You feel like these are just really a great band. They want to have fun. They want to actually teach people a really good time. And one of the other people that we haven't mentioned yet was Madonna, who also who was a very, very famous there. But even with that, Huey Lewis was still competing with people like that. Like very, very interesting to just have this actual band, that played all their instruments, competing with these groups that sometimes only had like 2 or 3 people in the group. Most of them just playing synthesizers, and stuff was, drum machines and whatnot.
Sorry guys, just got to step away for 1 second. It's like
okay, yeah, no worries. Yeah, no worries. So just to go off on what he was just saying about Huey Lewis, it was really difficult for me to find rock bands, that I really liked, and I ended up listening to people like Scorpion and, Cinderella,
Those are my type of bands, dear ladies and gentlemen.
it was a rough
Poison, Warrant.
Yeah, Warrant, Poison. I really did not like it. I was struggling to try to find liking it. Luckily, Stevie Ray Vaughan came into play there. Clapton was still playing, and so I was listening to these guys that Stevie Ray Vaughan had a little bit of resurgence with this Crossfire, the song. It did really well. It was on MTV. He also was on the David Bowie track, Let's Dance, which was big on MTV, played a lot, and he played on that. So he had a little bit of out, so I would follow him, and a little bit of Clapton. But really, when it came down to it, I really could not find a band that I really loved, like I could have in the 60s or the 70s or even the 90s. The 80s, it was just tough. Van Halen, maybe, and I didn't necessarily love Van Halen, but I liked that they were just a real band, without the makeup and the big hair and the high-heeled shoes and stuff. Okay, Joey, sorry.
Kiss.
All right, so what were you guys talking about? Just like I
was wrapping up on the Huey Lewis impact,
Yeah.
and how he competed with so many electronical music genre.
Oh yeah, it was honestly, like they were a band too, where it was like they weren't in the right generation, especially with like the music that they were putting out. It was more like it was like a whole blend of different stuff. It was like 50s soul meets like rock and roll meets even a bit of reggae in some instances. You got a bit of jazz and hear a bit of funk. They combined everything.
Yeah.
Also, even with the new electronic movement that's been going around. One of the producers even asked Huey to remove Bill Gibson, the drummer, and just put in a drum machine. And Huey was like, "Nah, I'm not doing that. I'm keeping the drummer." So yeah, that's how they kind of dodged a bullet there.
Wow, can you imagine?
Yeah,
it's really inexpensive, to you can just do the whole thing in your freaking in a machine. I mean, you could do that today, but I think today people are a little bit more savvy and kind of know that what are you trying to pull on me? Back then I think it was still fairly new, so people didn't really know. They just liked the beat, they just like, this sounds like this is a good beat,
Yeah.
And people would just fall for that.
Yeah,
exactly.
But they had a great career, man. Went up to like probably one of the most consistent ones. And like going out from Huey Lewis, like like the '80s, they were just full of like so many different genres. Like you had also new wave, you had like Tears for Fears, you got like Hall and Oates as well. Kind of like that pop rock with a bit of synth in it. I love those guys. It's like just like simple, no fuss, like pop rock. The Outfield, like Sean mentioned, that was one of my favorites. I love that. Hair metal, I love Motley Crue.
Motley Crue.
I love Motley Crue. Queensryche is another one of my favorites. I love the progressive metal that they ushered in. The vocalist, he's
crazy,
man. He's a monster.
Yeah.
The drummer Scott Rockenfield, another killer drummer.
He's like a peer in a sense.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Also, Poison and Warrants, the other like glam rock bands.
Winger.
Yeah. Winger. You got what else? Also a lot of power ballads too from the '80s that I forgot to mention.
Oh yeah, Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah. Chicago. That was one of them. REO Speedwagon.
Oh my God.
Yeah, love those guys.
Yeah.
You got Bryan Adams. Bryan Adams with all his songwriting. He's a genius songwriter. I love his lyrics.
Mary saying Dio. Remember Dio?
Yeah.
Definitely.
And even Don Henley with his solo career. He had a good solo career in the '80s.
Mm-hmm. And even Glenn Frey.
Yeah. Oh, and also one thing I forgot to mention too was film soundtracks. Also, man, like like that was one of the film soundtracks. Aside from like the hair metal, that was the other thing that also got me into like the '80s culture. I'm listening to some of this stuff. Like I don't know if you guys know Vince DiCola. Like he did the Transformers soundtrack. He did what else did he do? He did the Rocky IV soundtrack. But he's like his compositions, man. Like he combined like freaking like heavy metal with synths and with a bit of like hard rock, and it was like he combined like different time signatures in it and everything. Like it was genius. Wow. But and it was like he had like the genius aspect to it where like he could, it had kind of had like a danceable like beat to it, but like it also conveyed like the tension of the film. Like with some of the scenes in the Transformers movie, like it had that vibe to it. And then with the synths and all that, they were electronic, but they also had that human feel to it still. It wasn't completely like
because I think they were made a little bit more human. They got more. I think they started out like very very like really robotic, and then they kind of got a little bit better, realizing like, hey, there's a market here. Let's put a little bit more effort into making this a little bit better. But I think they made it too big. I think some of the overall sounds I thought were too big, and if you listen to we were just talking about that song with Phil Collins, Easy Lover, that beginning is so what is it? Is it Easy Lover? No. Suit Studio.
Yeah.
If you listen to the beginning, it's like, ding, 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 it's such a huge sound. But I mean, that was the '80s. The '80s was that, so it fit in, and it was a great song, and I love what they were doing there. But Joey, talk a little bit about drummers in the '80s. Talk to me. What drummers stand out to you in the '80s besides John Robinson?
Yeah. You mean Scott Rockenfield from Queensryche?
Yeah, well,
What'd you say?
John Robinson. He played on everything. He played on the Michael Jackson record.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's-
right off the bat, man. Freaking who's it? Jeff Porcaro. Love Jeff. He played on everything. Also, he played on.
Yeah, he was
I
crazy.
think he played on "Beat It" by Michael Jackson. He played on all of the Toto records. My personal favorite Toto album, probably Toto 4. I mean that's their hit one.
He was
what
a
else?
great drummer.
Oh yeah,
Drummers
great pocket player.
are like trying to figure out some of his things. Like he was really had like a whole shuffle rhythm playing that was kind of ahead of his.
Rosanna. There we go.
Yeah.
He had even he said himself in like some interviews, he's like, like some of the beats that he made up, like the Rosanna beat, like he stole, like, you know, he was just honest about it. He stole from like Bernard Purdy, he stole from John Bonham also with Fool in the Rain, and all of that. Like, you know, he even took some influences from some of the jazz drummers, like Buddy Rich. You know, everyone took influence from Buddy Rich, but that was one of his influences.
Even guitar players are influenced by Buddy Rich.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, he's definitely one of my favorites. I watched like so many drum clinics with him. I even came across this old like YouTube archive of like a drum class back from 1986. Like someone actually videotaped it on YouTube. Yeah, and he was in like a classroom and like showing everyone. And he was freaking killer.
Yeah.
He looked like freaking cool, like on stage. Like he had the glasses.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, all the drummers look they're like, don't mess with me, you know, like.
So Mary is mentioning Tommy Lee or Lars from Metallica.
Hey, Joey.
She's asking who I prefer.
Yeah.
Well, she's saying Tommy Lee is the best or Lars from Metallica, so she likes them both.
Ooh, I'd have to say, I don't know, because it's like, if you look at both their careers like as a whole, I'll have to say, as an innovative musician, I'll have to go slightly more with Lars, strictly because like he also, like his drum parts, like, you know, even though he's like, you know, kind of washed out today, like, you know, he hasn't really been practicing that much. Like back in the 80s, like, you know, he created all these like different drum parts for Metallica, and like on stage, you know, he was freaking like, you know, he was a showman, you know. They had like a lot of energy, and he hit like the crashes in places that you wouldn't expect. A lot of syncopated hits. A lot of people say like he overplays at times, and I could see that. But you know, obviously he wasn't like the best, you know, drummer compared to like, you know, someone like Neil Peart or Scott Rockenfield or someone like that. But you know, I mean, for Metallica, you know, he was good.
Well, he fit there. He had the power. He was a very power hitter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it fit in with the trying to keep up with the noise of you know, James and this guy with guitar. You know what I mean? It's just like heavy and Kurt.
I'd have to say like I'd have to say with innovation, I'll go with Lars, but with just overall consistency, like as a drummer, I'll have to go with Tommy Lee, because, you know, he wasn't really like as creative as Lars with his playing, but you know, he held the beat, you know, just like
a lot of energy.
Yeah, from
he played
AC/DC.
upside down. Remember when his drum set went like this upside down, and he was strapped?
Actually, one of my other favorite drummers, Duncan Phillips from the Newsboys, he took after Tommy Lee, like with the spinning drums.
Oh,
so
really?
yeah.
Oh boy. Hey Joey, what about Stuart Copeland from The Police?
He's
a character.
That dude cannot have a serious interview. You think he's actually insane a little bit, like when you his conversations.
Yeah,
I wonder why, because, you know, there's that footage of him and Sting fighting. Remember that footage where Sting threw the drink in his
face?
They just start rolling.
He's hilarious.
He's just like,
oh boy,
but he's still like that. You would think after like 40 years he would kind of chill out, but you hear him now be interviewed, and he's kind of the same dude, you know.
Oh yeah, and he like, you know, he embraced like the whole like he knew, like he kind of knows already that he has a bit of that like that kooky like.
Yeah, that's who he is.
Imagination type thing, and that's great. You know, he
is a underrated guitar player.
He's a very like very hyperactive drummer, and that works for him too, because like, you know, creates his distinct sound, that you could tell apart from like other drummers. It kind of drives the beat forward. He like plays like ahead of the beat, and then he does like the little hi-hat stuff, like
Right.
And then with the backbeat also, I saw a drum clinic where he just totally he got bored with the backbeat, so like he just neglected it altogether. And then he said you could still keep the rhythm with just hi-hat and bass drum, and then like just do like little freestyle on like the toms or anywhere else.
Right.
Make it kind of improvise like jazz. Which is the controversial part about him too, because like even he said like he hated jazz, like
Right.
he grew up on jazz and like Buddy Rich from his dad, but like he wasn't a big jazz guy. But he's also said in another interview that he likes to play like jazz drummers in a rock setting. So I don't know. It's kind of like sometimes it kind of
Yeah, but I mean that's how he is. He's a weirdo.
he kind of contradicts himself sometimes. But
I mean, didn't Neil Peart during the maybe it was during the 90s he did that, but he kind of studied and he changed his grip and stuff, and he played with a traditional grip and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but we didn't talk about the Police. They were pretty big in the 80s too.
Yes, and they're another one of my favorites, despite their whole
and I do
toxic
think Andy
dynamic.
is like one of the most underrated guitar players. Like his parts are like genius. Like,
Andy's a
people
monster.
don't realize his guitar parts are like freaking genius guitar parts. Like, and I don't. He doesn't get. I mean, obviously he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so obviously he got some recognition. But as far as like other guitar players, I don't think that they realize how, first of all, how delicate he plays. Like it's very, very precise and very percussive and stuff on his playing, and he's just very accurate.
Yeah,
which is like really hard to do with the way he's playing. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's really fantastic.
Yeah, and a lot of syncopation in his stuff too. Like a lot of and he incorporates a lot of the jazz chords in there. Like he was a great jazz guitarist too, man. He got a lot of influences.
They were a great band. I think that they were just a great unit together. It's too bad they didn't like each other as much.
Yeah,
I think Sting really was the main thing. I think if Sting wanted to keep it together, he could have. But Sting was just like, I'm gonna do my own thing.
I think Stewart was the one who wanted to keep the band together, but then Sting like kind of, I guess he got tired of it, and then he just wanted to do like his own solo career.
Yeah,
like he got more into the films and stuff. So, I mean, at least they went on their reunion tour back in 2008. So
yeah, that was huge. That was epic.
Yeah. But Sting's solo career also it was pretty good. I liked it. Even though he wasn't like I still prefer him with the Police. He still played with a lot of professional musicians.
Yeah.
Back
His
at that
album,
time.
10 Summoner's Tale. I think that's one of my favorite Sting album. On drums, he had Vinny Colaiuta was on there.
Yeah.
And Vinny's drum on that thing was just phenomenal. That record altogether is just great from start to finish. The whole record. But I think that was the 90s. I don't think that was that was in the 80s.
I think that was like late 80s, early 90s.
Was it?
I'll have to look at it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm gonna look it up. Go ahead,
but also, what is it? Now that you mentioned Vinny Colaiuta, getting tongue tied here. Vinny Colaiuta, Steve Gadd. He played. Yeah, I mean, what else can I say about him? He played with everybody.
Yeah, he's definitely considered as great as anybody, really. I mean, especially in the drumming world. But even people that are like, I remember being in concerts. I've seen like him playing with Eric Clapton. I've seen him playing with. I even seen him playing with Phil Collins, which is a little bit rare, but he did play with him a lot. And I've seen him in concert playing with all of them. And when people announce Steve Gadd, like on drums, Steve Gadd, the much bigger scream. Like people know this guy if you're not even into that style, or if you're not even into drummers, you know who he is. 10 Summoner's Tale, 1993.
So that was 1993.
Yeah,
okay.
93.
Gotcha.
You guys still weren't born, but anyway.
And Steely Dan, man, I love Steely Dan.
Oh, that's right, Steely Dan, man.
Yeah.
These bands were able to really kind of maneuver in this new MTV world. We didn't talk about Dire Straits, who
Yes.
Mark is like one
I
of my
gotta forget about that.
top players
Mark
of all time.
Knopfler, yes.
Yeah, he's
Oh.
one of my favorite guitar players, and he's one of those guys, like, and you guys, I don't know if you guys experience it, but there's certain musicians that you love what they do, but I can't do it. You know what I mean? Like I can, like Eric Clapton, I see his playing and I kind of understand it. I could even, maneuver some of those, those runs. Stevie Ray Vaughan, craziness, but I can see what he's doing. I understand it, and I can maneuver some of it. But when I look at like Mark Knopfler, I do not understand how he's doing it. I have no clue. He's got this finger picking thing. And it is the most incredible style of playing that you just can't.
Yeah, it's like such a like delicate, like precise thing that he's doing.
So precise and so incredible. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of a Lindsey Buckingham in his style. His style. He's got a little bit of that also from Fleetwood Mac, and he's a great guitar player. Also, he's also one of my favorites too. Great band. Dire Straits was great, and Dire Straits really MTV. They had a whole song on it. I want my.
Yeah.
MTV. It was like a very big.
Yeah,
part of growing up.
Yeah, an adaptation of "Don't Stand So Close to Me." I want my MTV.
Yeah,
with Money or Nothing, Money for Nothing.
Yep. Money for nothing.
Yeah, classic MTV video, classic.
Yeah, I think also a lot of those songs from the '80s were also like comical. Like they really wanted to be
self-aware.
Yeah, they just wanted to play on words and just have fun with it. Even like Madonna's like a virgin, touch.
They didn't take themselves seriously.
They did not. And then in the '90s, then of course that just changed. Everybody's like, "You're gonna die today."
Yep. Time for grunge.
I'm so sorry.
And then that just killed the world.
Freaking one of my other favorite female artists from the '80s, Pat Benatar. I love her.
Oh man, I love Pat Benatar.
Yeah, she's great. Ever since I heard what was that song? "We Belong," I think. Yeah, with like the big drums.
Yeah, she's fantastic. What a great voice too.
Oh yeah, she's great.
And there was Bonnie Tyler.
But let's not forget Cyndi Lauper.
Oh, that's right. Cyndi Lauper, great actually songwriter too, and really great singer. Cyndi Lauper kind of came out and was a little bit not taken seriously, like she, and then she wrote like Time After Time, and then people were like, oh, okay, because the first song was like, she was like 30 years old when she sang Girls Just Want to Have Fun. She was already she had just made it basically, at 30, and she's singing Girls Just Don't Want, but she looked like she was like, really, really young. And then she was in the video We Are the World. And because she was so popular at the time, they gave her like an actual part in it. She wasn't just background stuff, she was really singing. And she was not respected too much until people started realizing that she was really a force, and she was a really great songwriter, and she is a great singer. And I was happy. Oh yeah, Irene Cara from Flashdance. I remember that. That was a big film in the '80s.
Yes.
Again, a big film. It's like the epic ending. And I love those films from the '80s.
And also, don't forget the whole high school theme of like the films from the '80s, like 3 O'Clock High, Back to the Future. I mean,
16 Candles. The Back to the Future series. There was a film called Last American Virgin. I don't know if you guys remember that film, but it was a horrible film, but it had great music in it.
It kind of rings a bell. And it had the ending, which I'm going to spoil it for you guys because I don't want you guys to watch it. But it was one of those '80s teen movies, where they played all these practical jokes, whatever. So this guy gets this girl, right? He gets this girl. Wait, no, he gets this. This guy really likes this girl. He finally gets the girl, right?
and he's kind of like a nerd, but she's this beautiful girl. He gets the girl. She leaves. Her name is actually Franklin. Actually, I'm friends with her on Facebook, believe it or not. But she leaves him. She goes with this other guy who's kind of the thug. She gets pregnant from this guy, right? She comes back to him. He pays for this. This is how horrific this film is. He pays for her to get the A word, which I won't say it on here, but to not have the baby. And he pays for it. This is in the 80s. This is an 80s movie, right?
Oh, I'm not surprised.
He pays for this, and then he comes home in at a party. He comes in and he goes into the kitchen of this party that's happening, and she's there now kissing the same guy that got her pregnant. And that's how the movie ends.
Well,
He runs
So,
into his car.
basically, it didn't didn't resolve at all.
No, it didn't resolve. Right. He runs into his car. The Breakfast Club is another great film.
Mhm.
He runs into his car and he starts driving, and we're watching this, and it was me and a buddy of mine. We're watching this, and we're like, "Well, what's gonna happen? Like, he's gonna turn around and get a gun and kill the guy? I don't know. Something's gotta happen." The credits start running, and we go, "Oh, you!" We start cursing. My mother was like in the other room. My mother comes in. She's like, "What happened? What happened?" Oh, this mother,
this movie.
the worst. And it was
I
this song. I don't know if you guys remember James Ingram. Do you remember? You know who James Ingram? He was a big star also in the 80s, a big singer. He was an R&B singer. He sang "Just Once, Can We Figure Out What We've Been Doing Wrong? How the good times ever last for long. What are we doing wrong? Just once." Does anybody remember?
Doesn't ring a bell, no.
So anyway, that's the song that starts playing. I did my
I
best.
know, but it was nice.
And the credits start running up, and that song starts playing. He's driving, crying. Yo, it was the most depressing 80s movie I ever saw. I still think
That's okay.
it's so bad.
Don't
That
you
sounds like
forget about me. And
Now,
Joey,
we're going over an hour.
yeah,
Oh man, I took up a lot of time. Oh yeah, I have a time, man.
peace, man.
This is our last show. We're gonna be here.
Brand-
long.
yeah,
It's a brand
show.
new
Let's
house.
go on this one.
We're going big. It's the 80s. Go big or go home.
Go big or go home.
Yeah, that's it.
Special
The last hurrah. All right, Tommy, take it away.
All right. So
Bring us home, Tommy. Bring us home.
I'm going to do that because we got some great bands that we got to mention that
Yeah, I hope
a little bit more in detail.
you-
So,
the
first
bell.
of all, there's a band that somebody mentioned last week that we didn't talk about that much. Kiss.
In the 80s?
Oh, that was for the 70s, but they came back in the 80s, and they did something very drastic,
Ah, you're right.
which was weird, but they did it. And then they just turned into a typical, I guess, not metal, hair band, I guess. But they had some pretty good stuff in the 80s. Yeah, they had like songs like "Lick It Up," "Crazy Nights," stuff like that.
Of course, lick it up. How can I forget?
But that not only did they have an outfit change, basically, they had a lineup change. Ace Frehley and the drummer were not there anymore. Eric Carr, not Eric Carr. Peter Criss was not there. Eric Carr took over on drums, and Vinnie Vincent took over on guitar. And those two were, from what I've heard, they were very good musicians, and they really fit in well for the band, at least during that time. And eventually they, now they got Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer, and now they're back in the makeup and the high heels and whatnot. But
Yeah.
Sometimes I guess it's got to come back because it's not Kiss without the makeup. But
Yeah, I for some reason it was one of the bands that I never got into. I don't know what. It just I don't know why. I never really. I think it was like I want to rock and roll all night. Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
And that was the only song that I can remember hearing, not really necessarily liking, just hearing.
Yeah.
It. And I always thought, and this is probably, I know there are Kiss fans out there that are probably going to hate me, but I always thought that they were a great spectacle. They were a great spectacle. The tongue, blood on the tongue, and so with the tongue, the whole explosion, fire.
Like the same time.
Yeah, all that stuff was great fun, and it was a great show. And Rush talks about them too. You know, it says that they're really hardworking. They gave everything on stage, and for that, I respect them for that.
Yeah,
you know?
they're a great brand. They're a great brand.
That's a way of saying it. A great brand that's going to go on, because I could see them putting another Kiss band together, with completely different people. Why not?
And they still sound good. As long as they got good musicians, I mean, it's
especially if you guys give them the blessing and they manage them, or they sign them under a label and they say, these are our new guys. We're present. You know, we want to continue the brand. These are some great musicians, and we're gonna go out and we'll maybe go on stage with them.
These are the Kiss Force.
That's
First
right.
there was Kiss. You wanted the best, but now you're gonna get the best from the best.
The best
Kiss
from
Force.
These guys are good.
all right.
Anyway, called Just Once by James Ingram. That was the song. Just Once. And then Mary says that Gene is her husband. Okay. Gene Simmons.
All right.
Nice.
Sounds
He was,
So she's actually Mary Simmons.
There you go. Mary lost.
Gene was the one night husband of a lot of women throughout the decades.
Yeah, that guy talked about his stuff like as if it's some kind of a feat. But anyway, I'm sorry, Tommy. We keep cutting you off.
Sorry, Tommy.
It wouldn't
be a Music Makers without it.
True. So we got to mention AC/DC again, because they came back.
That's right.
Literally back in black.
That's right.
The album. Biggest.
I'll see what you did there.
One of the biggest albums they ever released, Back in Black, which is actually having an anniversary this year, currently. 40th anniversary. You had like Back in Black. You had Hell's Bells. You had pretty much every song that you can name with Brian Johnson on that album, pretty much.
Yeah.
Except for Thunderstruck. That came a little later, I think, in the 80s. But or maybe even but yeah. You know, but of course, I don't think Joey mentioned this band. Maybe he did, kind of, sort of. Guns N' Roses was big in the 80s as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll let that to you now.
Sweet Child of Mine. I hate to mention that, but it's true.
Yeah.
Mr. Brownstone, you know, you name it. You know,
I love
the
Mr.
jungle.
That's
I
what
love
I'm hearing.
Great song. Brownstone.
Also, Night Train. Don't forget Night Train, bro.
all those songs, every day.
November.
And of course, we got to mention Bruce Springsteen for a second, because he was born in the USA, and he was born in it. He wrote an album called Born in the USA, which was released in the 80s, which is.
Hey, you know what? I give Tommy credit because he does segues on his band. We just start talking.
Yeah,
He put more effort in his delivery, so I appreciate you, Tommy. Thank you.
I gotta get these out here. Some of these are important. A lot of these are important. But another one. Going to heavy metal for a second. Motorhead.
Ah.
Spades.
It's all about the game.
Yeah. I don't know. I still don't understand why he sang like that, but there's different theories.
Me neither.
I think I heard one theory, like he was.
Great to meet you.
Let me what-
Tell me know my name.
Maybe it was vocally better from. I don't know what it is, but it's so iconic now. You know, when you think of
Purple Haze version.
Purple,
the Purple Haze one. Oh, fantastic.
So let's do it. But what else we got? Oh, of course, Van Halen with Jump in Panama and you name it, you know.
Yeah,
But another band, we're gonna switch again. We're gonna do the old switcheroo once again. Now, you may think rockabilly's dead by this point. Let me tell you, folks, you don't know anything, because it came back with the Stray Cats.
Yeah.
Bam! One of my favorite bands as of recently. Of course,
Brian.
of course, you can see I got my Gretsch Hall body just for the occasion. Brian Setzer.
Gotta
Tommy,
pay tribute
Tommy.
to Brian Setzer.
Tommy,
Big
play.
Gretsch guy.
Tommy,
What?
give me some Bigsby. Give me some Bigsby action, Tommy.
Let's see. This guitar only has 5 strings on it right now because I
Got to finger that real good.
Oh, well, it might be a little out of tune, but I'll just give you something.
Might have been a little inappropriate for that joke.
It's out of tune.
A little out of tune, but you get the idea.
But at least it looks nice.
But yeah, the Stray Cats have really become one of my favorite bands to listen to because just like the energy, like I've even seen Brian Setzer live, like with the for his Christmas show, and then Joey also talked about
Same. Yeah.
And, and you know, you'd have a segment where he did like a bunch of rockabilly stuff, and man, last time I saw him, he put on a hell of a show. Like he was standing on top of the stand-up bass, like just rocking out. I'm like, who does that anymore? Like nobody ever does that. Like,
well,
don't forget the bass where they bring it all the way down low.
Yeah,
bring it all the way down low, spin it around a bit.
Yeah, whatever they want to do, you know, they just do it. You know,
and his playing is phenomenal too. He's a great player.
Oh, one of the best guitarists I've ever heard. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could, you know, be like, but
yeah.
6 years.
Speaking of Brian Setzer, you should check out his new shop that he opened on Reverb. He's selling off his guitars and some of his gear. It's all been refit by his own techs. So he's selling off a lot of his stuff on Reverb.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Huh. All right.
And I actually saw Brian Setzer perform last year around last week, actually. Last week when I was at Graceland.
Wow. Nice.
They held a birthday party for Elvis's guitarist when he played out in the 70s, James Burton, the originator of Chicken Pickin'. So there was a birthday party for him. And then there was the Rockabilly Ride, and what a show it was! The Rockabilly Ride. It was just energy. Every song, he has stamina for days.
Yeah, that's awesome.
For as old as he is now.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah, it's one of those musicians that just looks younger than his actual age. You know.
Yeah.
Like
he stays in shape.
Still do it.
That's what it is. I mean, if you listen to or if you watch what's these guys, Iron Maiden, who also was 80s popular. The lead singer of Iron Maiden is incredibly in shape. He's a pilot. He flies the plane of the band that goes from gig to gig, from country to country. He's the pilot that flies the band. He'll literally jump off a stage of a show. He'll go in and he'll put on his clothing like he's a pilot plane. He'll get on the plane. He'll do all the check in his big plane, and then he takes off with his band. And it's so bizarre. It's so freaking bizarre, but
sometimes you just don't understand it, but you just go with it.
It's so crazy. I just love it.
Man. They keep the transportation in house.
Yeah, it's like, why not? He says that. He's like, why not? I'm a pilot. Why not just fly? We'll just fly us to different gigs, you know, and it's awesome.
Sorry that we keep interrupting you, Tommy.
That's all right.
It's our brand now. It's our music maker's brand.
The last one. Let's just keep going.
Let's just do it. Anyway, we gotta go another heavy metal band for a second. Metallica family.
What did you say? It was
or some like to call them But anyway, you know, you had from Metallica, you had Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, you know, all these albums that they released, which is now some of their most famous albums. There's more after that. You know, sure. You know, and of course, one of the other biggest songs that I think every guitarist probably learns at some point or another, maybe, I don't know, is One.
Yes.
And I think, you know, it's a classic song. You know, it's one of those. It's one of those songs. Like when I used to play a game called Guitar Hero, I always play that song for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway,
don't forget, there's one more too.
What's that?
Am I Evil?
Yeah. Now we got to go back to the blues because Yeah, you might have had Stevie Ray Vaughan, which I'll get back to in another second, just for a little bit, because I want to talk about him for a second, because there's something I noticed. Anyway, ZZ Top was another band from the 1980s. I mean, they kind of started before the 80s,
But
but
they were really big in the 80s with, She's Got Legs and
give me all your lovin', Sharp Dressed Man, especially
the
one of my personal favorites.
The Grinch.
Yeah. It's the only reason why I would ever perform that song, just so I can do that once. It's have mercy, but classic.
I just saw a documentary on them a couple of months ago. It was really good.
Yeah,
really, really good.
Now, speaking of ZZ Top, there's it's not really it's ZZ Top, but
I'm actually going.
Go ahead.
I'm going for the ZZ Top look.
Yeah, I think I'm almost getting there. If I just trim it, I'd probably be there by now.
Yeah,
I'll be Billy Gibbons at this point. I just gotta get the hat and the sunglasses. Anyway, John Fogerty was another artist, solo, not Creedence, by the way. This is him solo. One of his biggest solo songs, probably the biggest solo song he ever released. Put me in, coach. I want to play center field, which is another classic riff that I love the most. It's one of my personal favorites.
Mr. Fogerty,
it's so fun to play.
Mr. Fogerty,
knows what I'm referencing.
Are you here for the flight? Yes. Put me in case.
Yeah, that's like a meme. I guess you sent me, I think, Sean. But I don't know if you sent me that, but I just laughed when I saw it. I'm like, oh man. But anyway, now
he's ready to play. That's for sure.
Yeah. Now I just want to talk about Stevie Ray Vaughan, even though we talked about him enough. I just want to talk
never enough.
It's true, never enough. Something I noticed recently, I was watching like his I don't want to say his version or anything. Well, I guess his version of Texas Flood. I don't know if I forget if he wrote the song or not. No. I don't know much about it, but his rendition of it is one of the sauciest versions I've ever heard. Not only that, if you look at live footage of him, he takes the guitar, somehow puts it behind his back and starts playing. I'm like, okay, this dude's a legend. Like, come on. Yeah, I mean, who does that? Like,
he did that a lot.
See people doing this or whatever, but behind your back, like, how? Like, I don't even know.
There's actually a YouTube video where you can see him do all
kind
of stuff. I forgot what it's called, but it's like Stevie Ray Vaughan and all his so whatever.
Yeah, it's probably a lot of them, but that was one of my favorites that I've seen so far. It's just him, behind his back. I'm just like, and not a single note miss. Like he's flawlessly just shredding up.
The amazing thing about him.
I'm sitting there, jaw dropped, like
crazy.
Like damn, But he's definitely one of my favorites. Especially recently. He's become one of my favorite guitar players. As I've been listening to him a little bit more, trying to dig deep into his tracks a little bit. And see what he has to offer. And also, when he played Pride and Joy on a 12-string, that really shocked me the most for because it's to play those licks that he normally plays anyway is like hard enough, but to do it on a 12-string flawlessly still is just like it just and even he did a Rude Mood in the same show, I believe.
I saw that.
Which I was like like, how do you do that on a 12-string? Like,
and he's so consistent as a player. Like, sometimes I think all these guys, when they reach that certain level, they do reach a certain level of consistency. But like I've seen Eric Clapton live numerous times, and I've seen him actually miss stuff. Like I've seen him go into the wrong key and laughing over at Nathan East, the bass player, and stuff, and falling back in again. I've seen things like that. You know what I mean? Where you can. But Stevie Ray Vaughan, I have so many bootleg stuff on him and old video clips, and whenever you see him, it's like you just don't get a time that he was ever off, like time that he was just did anything incorrect. It was just such a creepy thing.
Yeah, like every single time, just nothing. Even like another famous clip that everyone has probably seen at some point or another is the famous guitar switch he did during what was the song?
Oh yeah.
Little Sister or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that title, I forget.
No, I don't think it was that one. Huh?
Yeah, I think it was.
I think it was Pride and Joy, wasn't it?
No, it was some little sister. I forget the name of the song.
Yeah.
But just not only that, like before the switch happened, it breaks the string, keeps playing, and it doesn't even sound like he missed a note. Still,
No.
like that's just like, I don't know how, but like either he wasn't on that string that broke, playing that, or
Yeah.
he was, and he just,
Well, that's the thing about when you have a Strat, because when you have that floating tremolo, if you cop a string, you have to take the guitar off because it untunes everything else.
Yep.
So that's why I never really liked those type of tremolos where one string goes out and you're off.
Yeah.
With a Telecaster or a Strat, you pop a string, you still stay in tune, and then you just switch off to another guitar and hand it. He just hands it in, give him back, and he just keeps on playing.
But yeah, that switch was just like when I
saw
little
sister, look at little sister.
Yeah, look at little sister. I think and but that guitar switch, smooth. Like if you ever seen it, if anybody watching, go watch it. If you haven't seen it, I mean, it's flawless. Like
I watch it a lot. I still do actually.
And the amazing thing is, like when he switches the guitar, he's singing, switching the guitar. When he comes back to the A flat or whatever it is, because it's an E flat,
Right
he's doing it right on. With the A flat, I'm like, how? Like he barely even plugs in. He's like, and I'm like, dude,
freaking. Is like,
yeah. I don't know what the audience reaction was, but
you can hear them in the clip. They're just like,
you probably. I feel like you probably do hear it because they're probably just so jaw dropped, like.
Yeah, no, you do hear them. I've seen the clip.
Some of them are probably jaw dropped though. Some of them are probably going like, "What did I just watch?"
There's also one where he's playing as a small club and he's playing and stuff, and then he just decides to go on one hand, and then somebody puts their hand out and he shakes their hand.
Oh yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah,
he's still playing, and the guy's taking time going, "Oh my god!" Like he's still going. The guy was obviously probably
still playing though. Still playing. He doesn't stop playing. He's just going. I'm just stretching up here. How you doing?
Yeah.
It's like I don't know, man.
Amazing. What else?
What else, Tommy?
Do we
have any other new wave bands?
I'm gonna actually jump in and name a few others. I mean, I know we're going on a If anybody's got to go to the bathroom right then, please by all means.
Grab your popcorn because it's gonna be a little bit longer.
We'll wrap up as soon as I have a few others that I want to mention.
Go ahead, John.
So we talked a lot about rock. We talked a lot about some of the biggest names in the 80s, but there was a big R&B movement also in the 80s that sort of like ballad stuff. Like if we got Kenny Rogers was a monster in the 80s. Air Supply was a monster in the 80s. Lionel Richie was huge in the 80s. Kenny Loggins.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can pretty much Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers. They had these huge careers in the 80s. I think of Patti LaBelle. I think of Aretha Franklin, Tina Turner. There was this whole other. I mean, it seemed like it was a really great. I think when people give a hard time to the 80s, because of whatever reason, I just think that they haven't really been paying attention to it, because the 80s was really diverse. The 80s was way more diverse than the 90s. The 90s kind of went all grunge, and yes, there was a lot of other things going on, but it went hip hop, grunge music, and then they combined it together, with like Limp Bizkit and those kind of guys. But it really was a completely. It seemed like it was just a little bit more narrow in what was actually being played. Whether that was done on purpose or not, I don't know. But in the 80s, it was just so. Look at all the artists that we talked about and how different genres they were.
Mm-hmm.
From Michael Jackson to Van Halen and everybody in between.
Yeah, just look at the lineups for Live Aid, and you'll see how diverse it was.
Yeah, actually, we didn't mention Queen. Queen had their resurgence.
Yeah, their resurgence.
Yeah, in '85, and they came on and blew. I still go back and watch their. I think it's like 21 minutes they were on stage, and I watch it because it was from start to finish. He controlled that audience so incredibly. Yeah. And what makes me angry is that Led Zeppelin came on stage, and they were horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
They could have had the same resurgence if they would have come out and just blow the place. But Jimmy Page, his guitar was out of tune.
Yeah,
He
it was such a ragtag effort. What
it was
happened with
so
them?
just thrown together like we're just gonna go out there and do it, and it seemed like
And then
we're gonna be incredible tonight, and knowing Freddie, no, I don't know Freddie, but knowing Freddie from seeing in interviews and stuff like that, I know he wanted to always be perfect and great. You know what I mean? He just always knew they were gonna be a great band, and these guys were also. Jimmy Page was still I think he was either coming off of heroin or he's still kind of on it, and that was kind of like too bad, Mary's actually named some names here. The Gap Band, which I totally forgot. I love the Gap Band. Janet Jackson, Janet Jackson was humongous. So yeah, the 80s was very, very diverse. We had some great artists there. Sheena Easton, that's right. Remember Sheena Easton had some For Your Eyes Only movie soundtracks again. That was from the 007 film with Roger Moore, I believe it was. Was it Roger Moore? Yes. At the end, the girl goes, he takes off. He's so corny. He takes off her dress and it drops, and you just see the top of the top, of her bottom and stuff, just the top. And then she looks at him and she goes, For Your Eyes Only, darling.
Hey, gotta have that nip slip.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. She was gorgeous.
Gotta have just a smidge of that, just a smidge.
Yeah, just a smidge. And but yeah, that was, and in the 80s, also the soundtracks in the 80s, like Joey was talking about, it really was when soundtracks kind of like made their, like, I think Saturday Night Fever probably started, this huge thing where the soundtrack was what everybody was talking about, even, it's almost as much as the film. Grease came early 80s, I guess, and had the same kind of thing. And then from that moment on, the soundtrack became just as big as the films, and unfortunately that's kind of died out now. The soundtracks are huge now, are big, but they're not as they're a big part of the release, but the way they're distributed differently, and that kind of like loses a lot of stuff. The heavy metal soundtrack was awesome. That's right. Remember that? That was fantastic. Prince. We didn't talk about Prince.
Oh,
well, briefly mentioned, but
yeah, you did mention him. Yeah, he was a force in the.
Yeah, you were either team MJ or team Prince in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when they were trying to compare the two, and I was thinking to myself that even at that time, there was really no comparison, of those two guys. They were completely different. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially Prince, I thought was a genius. Prince played everything, piano, drums, and he played everything exceptional. It wasn't like he just dabbled. He played everything really great, and he was a great songwriter. So,
Dirty Dancing was also in the 80s.
That's right, Patrick Swayze.
I had the time of my life.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
Actually, when he walked out, what was his name that sang that song again? I can't remember his name. But when he sang that song, he walked out of the studio and he was like, he told somebody.
That was Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes.
Bill Medley, yeah. He said, see you at the Grammys. He said when he left the studio. He was right. I was like, damn, he was like that. That was a confident dude. And he fought for that song. There's a little documentary on how much he fought to want to sing that song, because he was sort of like considered a guy who already had his heyday, and for him to come back. And so a lot of great things in the 80s, guys. We could probably go on and on. We're approaching an hour and a half. And I don't want to just end off by just thanking everybody who watched. Mary, thank you so much for being on. You're such a big contributor to the show in the last couple of weeks. We appreciate you very much. And everybody else who tuned in, I appreciate all of you. We're going to be back doing something at some point. We're going to be having some music. I don't know exactly. I'll talk to, I kind of have some ideas, so we'll bring that up. But want to thank everybody. Want to thank BreakTime, the band here. You guys are awesome. You guys are you guys are at the beginning. You know what I mean? We're talking about all these bands and stuff that have you know, either ended or they're in the middle or they're at the end or they're done. And you guys are literally at the beginning, so it's exciting to have you guys and document these shows. You know,
It's gonna be legendary.
yeah. So it's going to be a fantastic run for you guys, and I wish you guys all the best. We will definitely be collaborating on more stuff as well.
Yes, please follow BreakTime at BreakTime Live NJ or www.breaktimelivenj.com. And coinciding with the release of coinciding with the reunion tour of 2064, you can pre-order my autobiography. It's going to be released in 2064.
It's gonna be the last time he probably says
It's going to be injected into your brain.
That's right.
Yeah, literally, they're gonna just go.
Yeah, you just gotta actually download it. Yeah.
And don't forget, everybody, break time's a great time.
Break time's a great time.
That's our motto.
And email johnhenrysoto@gmail.com. We'll deliver a special cake to you from your
Joey, I apologize.
Yo, everyone, just please guys showing some love so that it can stop crying, please.
Can you show some love down in the comments? And even if you like this video, that'll make him happy, or stream rather, that'll make him happy.
Oh Lord!
I just love you guys so much.
The last one, I will say that I do have a Patreon account, and this is what it's called. And if you guys, anybody's interested in supporting what I do, you can go there. And final thoughts. I just want to say that I think it's important what we're doing, and even though we sometimes we go a little light on it, and we, you know, sometimes it might seem like, oh, we got to do this thing. Maybe we don't have the perfect words to say, or maybe we feel like we didn't deliver what we wanted to deliver, but we always delivered exactly what we intended to deliver, and we never swayed from our purpose and our integrity, because I think that's one of the highest things that I find in this band is the integrity and how much we really love music. Like when I see Joey's eyes light up when I say something that he totally understands, that he agrees with it. Same thing with Tommy and Sean. To me, that's exciting, because it's like we have this unspoken reality on a piece of music that we both heard separately in the world, you know, and it still means a lot to me. And some of this music I heard before you guys were born. So to hear you guys talking about it, it means a lot to me, you know, and I think the audience really appreciates, you know, what we're doing here. Even, you know, though we're going to be not doing this, I think we're going to continue to be making a lot of music and a lot of shows, and just a lot more content for people and inspiring people. So with that said, I want to thank you all for being on. Thank you for following. And I'm going to take out this final thoughts out of here first. Get out of there. And if anybody is interested in music makers or anything, not music makers, but anything in the future music, please email me at John Henry, or come visit my site at johnhenrysoto.com, and you can message me through there. This is my personal email right there. And I would love to talk to you about what you have in store, any ideas you have. If you want to book break time for anything, please just email me. I will send them the message, or you can follow them. Like Sean said, you can.
And if you follow us,
so,
we will still take you up on that your Dickies offer that we kept offering all those times ago.
If you are a female and are over the age of 18, you'll get a special kiss from yours truly.
And the only
between the ages of 18 and maybe 24 or 25.
Stop.
the only
And you'll get a free.
Whoever took me up on that was Sarah Smith.
It has to be the strawberry shortcake, though.
Yeah, the only person who took me up was Sarah Smith, and she was ugly. I could not believe it. She was.
Oof.
I know Sarah.
Yeah, you remember her, Sarah Smith. All right, guys, thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. I will talk to you guys soon. And as always, peace.